Hi everyone. There's one player in the chess world right now which everyone is talking about. It's all over my news feeds and it's young 11-year-old Tani, a Nigerian refugee who came to America, started playing chess, started winning tournaments at the age of 8 years old, and now he's just won a tournament at the age of 11, which has achieved him his second IM norm. He was already a FIDE master, by the way, so he needs one IM norm to then become an international master, and he beat out a strong field of IMs, title players in this tournament. The most famous in the field was actually Levy Rosman, of course, also known as Gotham Chess. Big content creator, and actually Levy had a really rough tournament. If you haven't seen his latest video, then do check it out. It's a bit sad to see someone kind of going off chess like that, but that's how he's feeling right now after the tournament he just had. But back to Tani, so let's have a look at this game here. Here he was playing with the white pieces. He was the strongest player against his opponent here. I won't try and say his opponent's name, a bit tough to say. So he kicks off here with e4, we had c5 played, knight f3, d6, and now he goes for this trendy bishop b5, the Rossolimo variation, and there's a number of different ways for black to actually block that check. Here we had this super solid knight d7 move, and now c3 was played, preparing d4 later, and now knight f6 was played, hitting the centre. And the most common response here is queen to e2, holding that pawn. You can also go pawn to d3 here, but bishop d3 was played, a weird looking move, but okay, after black didn't block with the bishop, well, you didn't have to trade. Now that knight's likely going to have to move again anyway, and that's what happens right now. It hits the bishop, and once again the bishop now tucks back to e2. So a really weird looking opening. White's losing time with the bishop, but then black's losing time with this knight. And most commonly we actually see takes on f3 here, and it leads to a fairly solid position. There's been games from here, Tani had one himself, but here black goes for something which is a bit more daring. The knight comes back to g6, keeping pieces on the board, and h4 was now played, chasing that knight around. And h5 was an option here to shut that one down. Then you give up the g5 square, but white's also given up the g4 square. So a different way to play, but black actually just goes e6. A good move here, because after pawn to h5, you give the knight a square. And okay, black is going to get some counterplay in the center if you can time the break right. This is of course taking white some time. So pawn d3 now played, pawn h6. Now the bishop develops to e3, and white's not too scared of this one, because then this bishop can come to f4, it's doing fine from that square. The knight would probably have to retreat soon, so we had queen c7 played instead. Now the knight develops to d2, and now here black plays a bit of a dubious manoeuvre. Best was actually the very simple knight to c6, preparing bishop e7 soon, then you can get castled, but instead bishop to d7 was played. We had rook c1 and now bishop c6, and it looks nice on this square, but it's actually a bit slow, and you're blocking this knight from actually moving out of the way, and until it moves the bishop can't develop. So this is the big positional problem here, and this is where Tani just takes advantage of it straight away. So he pushes b4 here, playing on both flanks of the board, and black's already in a bit of trouble. The centre's coming under fire before you're fully developed. So if you take this one, after we recapture, we're opening the rook, b5 could be coming, all that sort of stuff. And so b6 was played instead. The queen now developed to c2, and now queen b7 was played. Really the best there was knight to c8, but it's pretty miserable. You know, you're trying to develop the bishop, but look where your knight's stuck, can't actually develop right now. So instead queen b7 was played, pressures the e4 pawn, and it seems to be setting up some tactical stuff with a pawn d5 push, because after knight c4, hitting this one on d6, that was defended with the knight, and then we had captures here, but black didn't recapture, instead pushed pawn to d5. Now if you recapture this one, knight a5 is the follow-up, then you can actually pick up the bishop, and white's got a pretty decent game here with pawn d4. Once again, you're exploding that center before black's castled, before the rooks get connected, and that's why there's tactical problems. So if you pick up this pawn here, well, in this line you're actually losing a piece, because we go bishop b5 check, the king moves, then we hit this square and we fork both of these pieces. We'll be winning the knight once the rook moves. And if instead of taking with the queen, you take with the knight, well, now we can go rook b1, and it's all about penetration into the position before black is developed. So say you go a6 to stop bishop b5, well then we can take here, see some kind of a line like this, and once again we're checking the king, it's not yet developed, massive attack raging on, this is impossible to cope with. So if we come all the way back here, this is why the pawn on c5 wasn't actually captured. You're just opening yourself up to a big attack after that knight a5 move. So instead d5 was played here, but again it's risky in a different way, because now we capture here, opening up the e-file towards the king, the pawn recaptured, the knight hit e5, and after takes on c5 with the pawn, again we've got these problems down the b-file. The queen moved away, the bishop was captured, queen retakes, and now knight e5 forces the queen over to a6 here, because say you come to e6 or something like this, well then you're running into this queen a4 check. Again, you'd have to backpedal with the knight, and then d4 is just super powerful, opening up this bishop, you're about to come down here, and so you can't even develop this one, or then you're running into this tactic, losing your queen. So it's just not very good at all, you're not yet developed enough. And so instead of moving the queen to e6 here, it jumped across to a6, covered this a4 square from the queen checking. But now a simple finish from Tani, he pushes d4, the queen is hit, so the pawn blocked with pawn c4, and now can you find the final tactic to finish off the game here? So the move here is knight takes on c4. Now the queen can't recapture, and if the pawn takes, well then we go bishop f3 and we're picking up the rook in the corner. So here black resigned, a crush from Tani, and he's almost at that IM level, so look out for him. I hope you enjoyed this game. If you want to see another epic game by a Chess Prodigy, click here. Thanks very much for watching, see you soon.